I will follow the lines of discussion presented by Henry and Lucan, but more focus on the opposite side of the arguments, while to some extent Henry and to a greater extent Lucan focused more on structure. I will try to emphasize the role of agency in post-Soviet regime changes, mostly focusing on Russia and to some extent to cases Lucan outlined, Ukraine and Moldova. And if I would summarize the state of the art in research on regime dynamics or regime changes in Russia, these two words would be dismal consensus. In other words, nearly everyone agreed that there is an age of durable authoritarianism, whether or not it will continue for decades beyond Putin's tenure. A friend of mine just published a book called Will Putin's System Survive Until 2042? Actually, it's a combination of well-known works by Andrei Amalrik about 1984 and the writer Vladimir Voinovich, Moscow 2042. So let's see what will happen in 2042. But in any way, many observers do not expect that authoritarianism in Russia will be undermined or disappeared in the foreseeable future. What about the hopes on regime changes? They're mostly related with midterm developmental prospects. This is the argument presented in Henry's recent book, Paternal Politics. Also, Daniel Treisman noted that if there will be a sort of sustainable economic growth over time, and socio-economic development will be successful, then after the change of generation of rulers and citizens, there will be a new window of opportunity for some sort of democratization, but it will take at best decades. When people see these forecasts, at least for many Russians, the poetry come into mind. Alas, at the day of this joyful tomorrow, I shall not witness, and neither shall you. Жаль только жить в эту пору прекрасную уж не придется ни мне, ни тебе. This is a statement from 19th century poetry of Nekrasov, known by every Russian kid. Paradoxically, this dismal consensus somehow resembled those existed in the world of political science and in politics in the 1970s. There are many parallels in present-day global politics and global politics of the 1970s because of economic troubles, because of very gloomy international environment, because of internal troubles in the United States after Watergate and the like. So at that moment, many structural arguments coincided with very gloomy statements about global crisis of democracies and the like. So there are many parallels. And Lucan already mentioned that there was a kind of opposite tide of the rise of agency-based approaches proposed by O'Donnell and Schmitter in the famous Transitions book. I also referred to this research project, but in a different way than Lucan did. Many years after its publication, O'Donnell stated in the interview that actually the reason of focus on agency was primarily political rather than scholarly. And actually, authors of this project put an emphasis that structure is not something predetermined. And structural factors should be considered as variables rather than as constraints. I believe that what has been stated in the 1970s may be very much important for our present-day considerations. And I will outline some counter-arguments in defense of agency in analysis of regime changes. And these arguments are rather simple. First and foremost, these changes started, at least, as effects of some moves taken by political actors. Very often, these moves are quite unintentional. Certainly, when Gorbachev launched perestroika, he didn't expect what happens in the end. In the same way, many wrong moves made by Yanukovych before his ousting were also poorly predictable, and one might say that democratization sometimes occurs by mistakes of autocrats, not as a kind of conscious project of those who aspired democratization. The second point that we tend to overemphasize political identity of major actors. We label them as Democrats or anti-democrats, as good guys or bad guys, but in fact they are mostly power maximizers. I believe that for any politician in the globe, the dream is very simple, to have as much power as possible and stay in power as long as possible. The point is that some politicians are able to do so, but many of them are not able to do so, because they are constrained by other domestic or international actors, or both, or by certain rules of the game which they have to abide, otherwise they will lose their power. But these constraints are not once and forever, they change over time, and in fact this should be taken into account. And also, when we are talking about regime changes, it looks like a linear process of democratization or reverse process of collapse of democracies. But in fact, there is a large database of autocracies known by names of authors of Guedes Wright and France, which demonstrated that 70% of regime changes after the World War II were shifts of power between autocracies. It was a transition from one type of autocracy to another rather than democratization. And these statements may be useful for understanding the logic of regime changes from perspective of political actors. If we have a look on varieties of regime changes, basically they may be attributed to one of two models, which may be labeled as Alsonian model by Mansur Olson and Golding's model by William Golding. Alsonian model stated here on the slide is based upon assumptions that, okay, if there is a stalemate between power maximizing actors, then there is a chance for democratization. The key word in Olson's quotation, that democracy is permitted. It's not necessarily built, but at least there is a chance for democracy. And there is no way for successful building of authoritarianism. In a way, this Olson's statement was reframed by Lucan in his notion on pluralism by default. It is a pluralism by default because no one can maximize power very much effectively. Yet another model is outlined in Lord of the Flies, dated back in 1954, which is one of the greatest books not only in 20th century fiction, but also in 20th century and 21st century political science. Because what Golding outlined in his book is a model of regime changes. Well, on an inhabited island where teenagers were brought by circumstances. And it is a sort of regime cycle, but not in a way Henry used this term, turn from one catastrophe to another. There was a catastrophe, then there was a sort of powerful coalition, then the coalition was broken and repressive tyranny was established, then there was a new wave of repression and new catastrophe, and in the end international actors came, well, foreign actors, let's call them, as Navy officers came to this island, and the regime change process was stopped. But what may be the next? So these two models of well, autocracy and non-autocracy, let me use these terms, very easily illustrated by examples of post-Soviet Eurasia. What Lucan stated about Ukraine and Moldova, cases of pluralism by default, are easily illustrated by very strong fragmentation of elites and their clienteles along, well, lines of regions, along lines of variety of interest groups and the like, and attempts to usurp power faced with counter-mobilization. This was a failure of Kuchma in 2004, then the failure of Yanukovych. So there is a stalemate, which is a mechanism of prevention of autocracy, but it is insufficient for building of democracy. It's just the other side of the coin. Because in fact this pluralism by default contributed to poor quality of governance, lack of control over resources and the like. It's a sort of lower level equilibrium, and the only good news that there is no way for zero-sum game, but at the same time it's insufficient for building democratic institutions, at least in the short term. One can imagine that if there will be a continuous game of attempts of usurpation and then counter-mobilization and the new breakdown, then over time there may be some sort of mutual adjustment and learning effect. Certainly it's not enough time. I thought both cases of Ukraine and Moldova are quite telling. What about Russia? Russia exactly fit into Golding's model. We see the collapse of the previous regime, then there was some conflict and usurpation of power by Yeltsin, and then strengthening of monopoly by Putin in the 2000s, and more extensive use of coercion and repressions, as Lucan stated. This is very much important variable in understanding of strengthening of authoritarian regime. What is different from Golding's model, that there is no catastrophe as of yet, and there are few signs of coming catastrophe at the moment. Problem lies ahead, because first and foremost there are few chances for successful dynastic leadership succession. I believe that all post-Soviet rulers are envy to Aliyev's family, but in Azerbaijan. But in comparative perspective, Aliyev's case is exception that proves the rule. There was a study of dynastic leadership succession by Brownlee, and it demonstrated that unless you have a strong and well-institutionalized dominant party, chances on successful leadership succession and dynastic rule over time are miserable. And more examples like that, they more close to example of Assad in Syria rather than to example of Aliyev in Azerbaijan. If so, then of course powerful elites behave themselves as roving rather than stationary bandits. They have relatively limited time horizons. They know that their kids will most probably not succeed them, unlike in monarchies where the durability of regimes is much more stable. And then the risk of disequilibrium might increase over time, and again, in these circumstances, chances on a new zero-sum game are pretty high. We might speculate what will happen if, say, Alexei Navalny will overthrow Putin at a certain period of time. Whether or not he will become a new dictator, let's see. The question is, if we consider structural factors as variables rather than constraints, what is the list of possible changes in structural variables? First, the international environment. Yes, Lucan is correct when he stated about the role of the EU. But this role may change, and please note that, 40 years ago, the EU had much less power than it has recently. So, to what extent this current environment will change over time, and how it will affect domestic regime changes? At least it is unclear. Resource curves. Well, Henry mentioned that statistical resource curves is insignificant, but we should also take into account that its effect may change over time. What has been observed about anti-democratic effects of resource curves was more or less related to the period of high oil prices. What will happen over time in the foreseeable future? The economic growth, or rather lack thereof, because we don't observe any sort of growth in Russia recently, and most forecasts are rather gloomy. Nobody expects that there will be something comparable with the period of the 2000s. Again, whether or not these conditions will have long-term effect. So, while we are talking about structural factors, we should take into account that they cannot explain changes here and now. And the time distance between structure and agency is very different. So, while we're discussing the role of actors and their choices, I believe that we should should not label them as good guys or bad guys, or state that everyone is bad. It's sort of other side of the coin, a switch from Hollywood movie paradigm to the paradigm of film noir. They are self-interest opportunists, as I would say many of ordinary people, and not much different. We also tend to over-demonize political actors. if one will browse through dozens of recent books about Putin, Putin is considered merely as sort of godfather or mafiosi-like monster who know everything, who predict everything, and who do only right moves. Is it true? Well, I really doubt that rulers, dictators, whoever else, have a very strong prognostic capacity of prediction of their moves. Paradoxically, it is the same about political analysts, who are very much incorrect when they make short-term predictions. They may be much better in long-term predictions. But short-term predictions are very much fluctuated, and probably no one expect the overthrow of Mr. Yanukovych when he refused to sign association agreement with the EU. Actually, it happens in several months because of cascade of wrong moves, and even Lucan, greatest proponent of structural arguments, noted in his book that, well, nobody knows why it happens. Maybe even Mr. Yanukovych don't know why it happens. From this perspective, I would say that we should not be doomed to perceive a durability of authoritarianism, and rather shift our thinking from some sort of normative lenses. Okay, democracy is good, authoritarianism is bad, certainly we agreed about that, but rather consider that this dismal consensus is a side effect of overly optimism which emerged after the collapse of communism. And in fact, many new autocracies are cases of failed democratization. It's a little bit different frame of analysis, which allows us, let me bring again O'Donnell and Schmitter's work, to think possibilistically, not probabilistically. In other words, rely not upon some sort of statistical predictions and explanations, but also look on individual cases and focus on domestic actors and their choices. And in this regard, I would say that cases of failure of autocracies, like Ukraine, or cases of decay of democratic institutions, like Hungary, are probably more important for our understanding of logic behind regime changes. And I do believe that despite many differences between arguments of Henry and Lucan and what I presented here, there may be a good way for synthesis of these approaches. Let me stop at this moment. Thank you.